disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So, Facebook CEO, owner Mark Zuckerberg appeared on a podcast, and he's having a bit of doubts and remorse. He's had a long time to think about all the censorship tactics they did during COVID and whether it was the right thing to do to silence out doctors, to silence out critics, to silence out people that were trying to provide information and context to a virus that we barely even knew to start with. How can you silence something that we barely knew what was going to happen at the beginning of this? But Facebook apparently knew better than anybody, including doctors who have studied virology and studied medical backgrounds. That's what they claim. But Mark Zuckerberg took the time to go on a podcast here, and he's done some soul searching. He's done some soul searching on whether or not it was actually appropriate to silence out people, that were providing context and a different perspective of the handling of the COVID virus, handling of the of the emergency lockdowns, and people that were critiquing the lockdowns and the mandates that were proven ineffective and actually more harmful to society than the virus itself. And here's what he had to say here in this podcast here. I think this is Lex Freeman's podcast, but I'm not totally sure. But this is what he has to say.
This information, I think, has been a really tricky one because there are things that are kind of obviously false, right? That are maybe factual, but may not be harmful. So it's like, all right, are you going to censor someone for just being wrong? It's, if there's no kind of harm implication of what they're doing, I think there's a bunch of real kind of issues and challenges there. But then I think that there are other places where it is, just take some of the stuff around COVID earlier on in the pandemic, where there were, real health implications, but there hadn't been time to fully vet a bunch of the scientific assumptions. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of the kind of establishment on that, kind of waffled on a bunch of facts and, asked for a bunch of things to be censored that in retrospect ended up being, more debatable or true. And that stuff is really tough, right? And really undermines trust in that. And,
you know what also undermines trust? When you double down and continue to smear people, even the people that were proven correct and are not trying to harm people, but actually educate people. And, you double down on the lies and silence of these people. And not just with COVID, but also with anything to do with Russia, anything to do with Middle East conflicts, anything to do with anything that counters the establishment. You continue to silence and harass these people for speaking their opinion, for being social on social media, which is so ridiculous that we live in an era that social media has become so dangerous that people are being social on social media that we have to silence out the social part. It is ridiculous that this is happening. But it's nice to see that the Tin Man finally got a heart. And yes, that may be a cheap shot at his looks. I mean, come on. The way I see him, he kind of reminds me of remember the movie I, Robot with Will Smith? Remember Sonny the robot? It almost looks like if that robot got a skin graft. That's Mark Zuckerberg. And he the way he even sounds, it just sounds not human. At least not a person of common sense. But he's finally come around, I guess, in a way. I guess we were wrong to silence people that were actually trying to make, claims and actually want debate and decorum. Yeah. How dare we silence people for actually having a discussion, which is something we should have done regardless. Something we should always do is have decorum. We should always have discussions. We should always have conversations. Especially during a medical situation. That's where the Barrington Declaration comes in. No discussion, no debate, nothing whatsoever. They try to silence everybody from the makers of the technology that brought us the vaccines, to the virologists, to the most trusted doctors in the world, to people that have cured people of COVID. They try to silence every single individual that did not line with the establishment trope of Anthony Fauci or Bill Gates, because they are the top funders of pushing lies and spreading misinformation. They're the ones that are buying purposely off big tech companies and media establishments and outlets all across the world to fearmonger, to promote their agenda for their own business. And it wasn't just with COVID. It was all over the place. But here's Jay Bhattacharya, top well-known doctor who was silenced on social media. Top well-known doctor, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who was correct about COVID, provided context, provided perspective because he has medical background, because he did the research, because he went and actually looked at the scientific data and questioned the science and actually investigated. He was silenced out on social media, and he responds to this by saying Zuckerberg served as an enforcer for government propaganda during the pandemic. His regime of censorship on Facebook, in which falsehoods were allowed and truth censored, enabled school closures, vax mandates, toddler masking, and much more. Glad to see some humility here. It almost kind of humanizes the twisted mind of Mark Zuckerberg. It almost kind of humanizes the fact that, maybe we were in the wrong to silence out professional doctors. Because, the trusted doctors at Facebook, the trusted doctor of Bill Gates, somehow outweighs someone who actually has years and years of medical practices and has written documents and has written medical journals that have been proven and are the most quoted. Just unbelievably crazy the amount of censorship that social media did, because big pharmaceuticals and Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization all conglomerated together to do this. They took over the reins of communication, the reins of culture, and fearmongered and baited us to allow a global-wide censorship campaign to silence out professional doctors that were just providing context. This is Lee Fain, also saying that the Biden Justice Department interviewed to slow and potentially block the release of social media censorship documents from CISA, the government agency tasked with shaping content moderation policies at Twitter and Facebook. Now, that is the thing that Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberg reported on when they released the Twitter files, and they did that whole testimony about the fact that the Biden administration, along with the intelligence communities, orchestrated alongside with big tech companies to push for censorship. They ordered people of Twitter. They ordered the CEOs of Facebook, the people of Instagram. They ordered those people to continue censoring their own viewers, their own members, to push the corporate agenda of big pharmaceuticals. They ordered these people to silence out and not provide alternative narratives than the conglomerate of big pharmaceuticals and government oversight. Which, by definition, when you have big corporations align themselves with government, that is a form of fascism, ladies and gentlemen. So they were trying to promote fascism by doing this. Here's also this. We showed this before, but I want to show it again. The infiltration of ex-CIA agents deciding Facebook's content policies. So Facebook aligned themselves with the CIA to have these censorship tactics because the intelligence community wanted to take over social media the same way they took over mainstream media. They wanted to take over this new era of the town square, which is Twitter, which is Facebook, which is Instagram, which is TikTok. That's why they're so angry and had to do all these testimonies and trials and try to prosecute the CEO of TikTok because people were talking to each other. People were providing different context. They were doing stories and reports outside the establishment-approved narratives. And they didn't like that, so they had to find a way to shame big tech companies and continue to push for more censorship. And here's one of these people here. This is Aaron Bremen, the top misinformation policy member at Meta. That's the parent company of Facebook. And look at it. This is his LinkedIn account. And it says misinformation policy at Meta, former CIA. And you can see right there his experience for 3 years now. Senior product policy manager of misinformation for Meta. I love how also in his byline it says, talks about democracy, social media, misinformation, national security, and content moderation. An ex-CIA agent is controlling your thoughts and deciding what you can read on social media. That is the nefarious work that they're doing to undermine you. They're not there to protect you. The CIA has no interest in national security, has no interest in securing you or anybody else. Their job is to promote and oppress people to secure the establishment. The people that are truly against you. That is their whole purpose. Their whole purpose is to undermine you by doing this stuff. Here's also this. Some people may not know that Facebook was under fire from a human rights group claimed censorship of pro-Palestinian posts. And what people don't realize is that Facebook has also international influence. So Facebook has gotten support from the Israeli government and the Saudi Arabian government. They have ties to these social media platforms, which is why they would censor something like this. Something that would create and promote the narrative of the Israeli militant against Palestinians, but not show any narrative or any post that tries to examine the other side of the story. That Palestinians are getting brutalized by this dictator force of the Israeli army. How these people want to survive and just live a normal life, and they're constantly getting brutalized by this corrupted, evil, militarized regime. They purposely did that because they were bought by the Israeli government. Same with the Saudi Arabian government. This is why you see, when you look at posts and certain news stories, how it's always designed in the one landscape. It's always that one point of view. And considering that most of the country still relies on Facebook and Google to get sources of news, this is damaging. This is why people get, sucked in to this one establishment narrative. Because Facebook has been compromised. The idea of social media has been bought by evil criminals that have no intent of making social media actually sociable, but are just buying it the same way they bought the news media, to control it. Because once they control the narratives, and the narratives keep repeating, and people see those narratives, then they have control over the people. They have control over the culture. And that's why they would do something like this. But good to see that, Robot Man Zuckerberg, who I'm surprised didn't take a drink of water awkwardly, feels a bit of remorse. He feels a bit down about all the years of censoring people, and probably not going to officially apologize or have any changes to Facebook that would actually make it better, but he feels bad about it. So I guess they're supposed to feel sad because a big tech billionaire who could easily make his company better for people is continuing to not do that, but is showing fake sympathy. That it's virtue signaling. I'm supposed to feel bad because a billionaire has feelings, but nothing's going to change.